we're here, part of why we're here is because we're looking at systems at a greater scale, at a macro scale, which is what we're all looking for when we're looking at smarter cities. Just a variety of things. We do prevention, partnership, systemic change, rescue and prosecution, protection, and reintegration. So we have an end-to-end approach in terms of dealing with the issue of trafficking. And that's particularly important. Partnership is important to us, which is, again, why we're here. We're developing a strong partnership with IIITB, which we very much appreciate. And looking at, and under that, everything we're doing is we look at impact and analysis. So we're looking at data as well. What are the trends that we're finding, and what can we do about that? I won't take you through this, but what we're looking at is a lot of NGOs will look at the grassroots level and miss out on the systemic level, or you get just NGOs that are just doing advocacy but don't really have that grassroots knowledge. And we've always said we want to be both. We want to be able to feed what we do in casework has to feed into our systemic approach. Again, partnerships, we do this with civil society, academics, academia, with the government. We do everything with the government. We can't do this on our own. And media, partner organizations as well, and the judiciary. These are just some of the figures. So as I said, 4,500 plus have directly been rescued, received care and protection. Just over 1,000 people we've helped to arrest. So for us, it's both not just a rescue, but also breaking the cycle of crime. Just over 100 criminals have been convicted, providing long-term support. Reunited just over 2,000 with their families, and we've trained over 43,000 law enforcement. So building capacity, because that's a critical part of how do we make smarter cities, how do we make safer cities. People have to know what to be able to do. We talked about defining the problem. So again, helping them define the problem. Initially, what we would find is that a victim would be treated just the same way as a criminal. Because they're going into a brothel, they're rescuing victims, but they also see them as criminals because of what they're doing without necessarily recognizing that they're being forced to do that. So that's a significant part. I won't take you through this, but in terms of security, we're talking about security this afternoon. One of the key challenges for us is how do we develop security, how do we use technology to provide a level of security for the vulnerable? For those that are before they're trafficked, but also after they've been trafficked and rehabilitated. How do we develop that on a wider scale? And there are various things that they do in terms of child protection committees, school committees, small businesses. And what I'd love us to do, and we're doing with IIITB, is thinking about how do we use technology throughout everything that we do, both from a prevention perspective. How can we use machine learning to understand who's vulnerable? What are the trafficking destinations? How do people transport? What can we do through that? How do we measure data? Data is a significant issue within the trafficking because a lot of it is guesstimate. So thinking about how do we get more accurate with our data. Some of the challenges that we'd love to talk about: data gaps, low awareness. So how can we scale up awareness using technology? Particularly in vulnerable areas, areas that don't have smartphones. So now you'll find that, of course, in urban India, everybody's got a smartphone nearly. But actually in rural India, smartphones are still a very small percentage. So things like apps, etc., don't really make sense. But there are things that we can do with our feature phones, as they're called, which could help. Lack of income opportunities, lack of health, service, and education. We're talking about health today. Health is an issue in the rural. How do we scale that up in places that are vulnerable? We need technology to improve security. Again, in terms of prosecuting those, one of the big areas that we're looking at is developing forensics. How do we include forensic evidence into cases, whether that's medical forensics, DNA forensics, financial forensics? We need to be able to pull that technology out. Coordination across countries is something that we work hard for. And in terms of prosecution, they don't really understand the trauma side of things. Protection, how do we improve our shelter homes? How do we improve the infrastructure? How can we use technology to manage casework? One of the big challenges that we've got and we're trying to fix is the fact that, as you know, with everything in the government, there are different departments and they don't really There's no common platform to talk to each other. But there's one victim that is being handled by the judiciary. There's one victim that's being handled by the shelter homes. There's one victim that's being handled by the CWCs. And we need a common platform, technological platform, that enables them to see the whole picture and not just their part, because everything interacts and you're serving one individual. Scale up of counseling services. So one of the things we're looking at is how do we do telecounseling in a manner that is effective, right? Because then you can scale that up significantly and make it available. Partnerships and reintegration, functional literacy, skill building as well. We've been looking at how do we improve skill building, peer support, inclusion, and education and skill agenda. I just want to finish with some quotes from some of the other survivors that we've worked with. So Pooja, we rescued in March of last year, and she said, "Thank you for bringing us out. Last night was the first night in many months that I slept without fear." These are real lives that we're interacting with. Arya said that she never thought anyone would come to save us. I had begun to think I would never get to see my mum again. That's the level that the children go through. But now they're starting to, and then we help develop them into survivors, from victims to survivors. You've taught me to lead a respected life, give me faith, opportunity to work and stand on my own 2 feet. And then recently we had Aarti, who recently met the Chief Minister of Karnataka. She was part of a large case that we had worked on, and she was able to speak directly to the Chief Minister and say, these are some of the challenges, these are some of the issues that we need to work towards. And for us, that's a big moment, because that's what we believe, that's what we know we can do as we work together as a common group of people, is we can take people who have suffered so much and make them actually into champions for the cause and what we want to do in our cities. And I just leave us with this thought, and I know we all familiar, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has. So thank you for your time.
You can take some questions.
Yes, any questions if anybody's got? So we'll be celebrating 10 years. Justice and Care will be celebrating 10 years at the end of this year. Yeah. Yes, yeah, it's an Indian organization. So we have offices in Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata, Patna, and of course Bangalore. Yeah. I mean, you can hear the stories. For me, it's always the stories that there's a desperate need in the country, and there's a desperate need all over the world, to be honest. And always meeting a survivor and hearing their story is a great motivation factor. But actually, we can change the system, and for me, that's as much of an encouragement as well. We can change the system, because we had this discussion earlier this afternoon that, oh, you're trying to reduce pollution, but that's your business. And for us, we would be very happy if we ran out of business. You know, that's our aim, is to not be needed. And that's why we work with the government, because we realize Justice and Care can only do so much, but actually the government system, if you strengthen the government system and you get that working well, then we don't need to be here. And we'll be very happy. Yeah.
What other organizations like Justice and Care are doing this in the country?
So there's a few organizations that do parts of this. The closest one to us is one called IJM, International Justice Mission. That's based out of the States, but they do similar things. There's lots of others that will do rescues, and some that run shelter homes, some that do prosecution, some that do advocacy. So they do various parts to it. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So there's Track Child. Yeah. So the government developed Track Child, and actually one of the projects that we're going to be working on is we're doing some independent research for the government on the effectiveness of Track Child as a system, and just to go back to them and say, this is where it's working, these are the gaps, and this is what should do. Yeah. Yeah.
If you're looking at a early approach for problem resolution, the recovery, secure recovery, right? But what are most of the activity in here? The Lord gets a lot of action happening. But before those two,
yeah,
the something called awareness, prevention.
Prevention. Yeah.
So we have such things happening, the technology happening so much. At the end of the day, you as organization can do only 1, 2, 3, 4, unless you use technology.
Yeah.
Unless you make the healthcare society, make it aware, make it responsible, make it accountable. First, to say that preparedness in prevention. I think we should talk to a lot of people in the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Focus on that.
Absolutely.
See, today, the last 3 and 4 fine. There are experts who are doing that. But our objective is not 3 and 4. Our objective is actually 1, prevention.
Yes, absolutely. Very much.
If you spend in prevention, prepare. Stop. Don't get to 3 and 4. How much goodness you show, they are not the real metrics.
Yeah.
In the long term. So my request to you here is bring a ecosystem of society, get like-minded people, focus on one.
Yeah, that's absolutely what we're doing. Yeah. That's what we're doing. So there's 2 sides to the story. You can focus on 1 and 2, but as the figures show you, you've got 1.4 crore who are in slavery. They also need to be rescued. As much as you put a stop to the flow, that you need to do both sides to that. So that's what we've done. We have what we call a Safe Village program, which we're running in vulnerable areas, which is a lot around awareness and we want to increasingly use technology to manage that, the prevention part of it. But you also need to rescue those that are suffering today. So we're doing both.
I had
Great.
a question.
Yes.
You talked about data gaps.
Yes.
And I remember last time you had visited, we also spoke about this. The quality of data must be so critical and at the same time so sensitive in terms of who gives it, right? So how do you figure out what the quality is, where you want to get it from, how do you protect it?
So I mean, there's different approaches to trying to get, it depends on whether it's internal data or external data, and we work hard. So internally, of course, we work hard in terms of all the evidence behind the data that we provide. So in terms of the numbers that we're saying we've rescued X number, then internally we have all our evidences, and where we say that these are the targets. So we set ourselves targets and we say this is the evidence against the target. So if we say we've done X number of visits to shelter homes, then we will have a shelter home visit report that is externally signed. But in terms of gathering broader data, it's so difficult because it's a topic nobody wants to talk about. B, it's an underground issue. So even recently, IJM did a research into the underground in Mumbai itself, and they used the mark recapture kind of analysis, which is really used when you're trying to gather the population of animals in in the jungle where you can't really see. And so it's difficult to gather that, but I think there's good strides towards capturing that. And I think any thinking around how do we improve the quality and accuracy of data is just so useful. So again, I think that's something we can pick up on. Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So when I was first told I'd be moderating this panel, I was a little nervous because I don't at all work on security. But I think what Peter's talk has done is sort of opened up the idea. Security can mean so many things, right? And thanks again, Peter, for bringing that in. We have a really diverse range of ways of looking at security that's going to come up with our panel. So I just wanted to briefly tell you the titles of the talks, and then we'll have Naman introduce all the speakers. So we're going to have talks with titles as diverse as constitutional compliance, take back control, data privacy, 100 days to GDPR, and surveillance is not an option. And then the way we'll go about it is after the introductions, we'll have the panelists here. We'll have each of you speak for maybe about 10 minutes, and then go on to questions and a discussion. Naman.
Thank you, ma'am. First panelist, Constitutional Compliance by Ms. Anvita, co-founder Sunwell. Anvita Bajpai is an alumna of IIIT Madras and IIM Bangalore with over 13 years of R&D experience with MNCs like Oracle, Satyam and Wipro. and with startups like Decidin as AVP, Vimagino, and her own ventures. Anvita has published research papers, filed patents, and written business and technology articles. She has been a speaker at leading conferences such as UX India, WIAD, Developer Summit 2015, RSD 2016, and also presented guest lectures at IIM Bangalore. Our second panelist is Mr. Bhaskar, co-founder Zero Labs. Mr. Bhaskar received an MBA degree from Indian School of Business. He is the customer service rep, co-founder and CEO of Zero Labs. Zero Labs' mission is to make a meaningful contribution towards two serious problems. First is the reckless invasion of privacy and the risk to business confidentiality on third-party untrusted clouds. The second problem is data breaches, which are looking more and more inevitable. Our third panelist is Mr. Peter, co-founder Nervio Cloud. Mr. Peter obtained his master's in computer science from Madras University in 1994 and has a bachelor's in science physics from St. Peter's College, Ernakulam, Kerala. He has been in computing, networking, storage industry since 1994 as a developer, technical lead, mentor, researcher, architect, educator, CTO, and as a technology evangelist. He has an exemplary knowledge experience in operating system kernels, network and I/O stacks, system programming, processor architecture, network protocols, storage networking, database internals, distributed network replicated file systems, virtualizations, and related computer science disciplines, and now storage clouds. He is co-founder of Nervio Cloud. Nervio Cloud is the new name for cyber-secure data infrastructure with a security by default and security by design tenets, no matter where your data storage resides in the cloud or SaaS services. Our fourth panelist for today is Mr. Sridhar, co-founder City Surveillance. Mr. Sridhar is currently the director and co-founder of City Surveillance Services Private Limited. He did his BTech from Nagarjuna University. 16 years of experience in the IT industry with professional experience in wireless telecom and networking domain. Played important roles as a product manager, technical manager, Scrum architect, and participated in all levels of product deployment lifecycle.
I'll just take a minute to yes, and it will Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. So instead of focusing only on constitutional compliances, I'll talk in generic manner, talk about what are the issues and very much where Justice Sankhya left from when you talk about the need for a big system and things like that. So that is where I think of and I focus on. So my startup is called Sunvai. Sunvai in Hindi is that means hearing of your problem in the court of law. So that's Sunvai. So this is the core message, that is an AI platform, powered platform that enables people with complaints to those who could resolve them. Now here people and complaints are very generic terms because there are various stakeholders. So when I say people, it can be citizen, it can be a lawyer, it can be a judge, it can be any bureaucrat, it can be a government official. And how we look into this particular problem from their individual perspective and what kind of solutions will be needed or what kind of features in the big platform will be needed. That's what we'll look into briefly. So why Sunvai? And here is a little story about myself. So I come from a technology background, computer science graduate from IIT Madras, worked in various companies across domains. So I looked into healthcare, multimedia, retail, banking, some of these domains, and research papers, patents, and also authored a few books. So about a year ago, I realized that somebody has infringed into one of my copyright. And as a result of it, for enforcement of that, I went to the court of law. So first time when I went to the civil court, and I felt I entered in a very different world. So obviously we studied in a technological institute, go to MNCs to work. We think what is very different. Then real life is very different, right? So, so you can relate to. So obviously I realized, so there was a hearing at 3 o'clock and I reached there at 2:30 and I waited for half an hour. And in that half an hour, I thought about so many possibilities. So many ideas, okay, this can be done, this automation is needed, so those are just thoughts, and whenever some thought comes to my mind, I keep noting down. Didn't do anything about it, but obviously as and when I got more involved in the case and I got more interaction about the way judiciary works, I thought, okay, why not look into it? So I did some brief research. So now, initially I was into problem, now I'm out of the problem and looking from it from a distance. And I did a survey, like how other people look into it. And this is one of the slides of the survey result, and I'll just read it out, these numbers to you. So when I did a survey, and I tried to figure out, okay, I'm looking into a particular legal problem from a particular scenario. Now, what kind of problems that people have in general? Do people have problem, or is it just my perception when I think of a possibility? So when I conducted a survey, and so results were that on an average, everybody, all human beings, everybody sitting in this room has about 5 complaints per year. That's a typical number. Some people have more, 1 or 2 less. For 50% people, 70% problems are unresolved. 70% people say yes to take legal action, but they don't take just because they don't know how. 80% people are willing to pay for delegation. And for only 9% people, the resolution is quicker. For rest of them, even if they initiate, nothing happens. 30% people talk about losing time, 50% talk about losing time and money, and for rest of them, either don't know or is don't want to think about it, so those kind of solutions. And then we go about numbers. So obviously, I mean, since here I ask people what kind of problems, so most of the problems were related to consumer issues, as you can see in the slide. And even if I talk about consumer courts, only in Bangalore, there are 4 lakh pending cases on the date of today, when I did this survey last month. 20%, and starting from the inception of this whole process, consumer court, only 20% of cases were done in the time, were resolved in the time. So rest of them are typically delayed. Then there is a very interesting number. If we talk about pendency in the legal system, the judiciary, with current system in place, current numbers in place, it will take 320 years to clear all the pending cases. This is the number. Now with this number, I think, okay, what can be done? So obviously, this is the data. This is where we are, and obviously, a lot of things to be done. When we talk about in morning, also we were talking about very interesting topics. And at the end of it, somewhere we talk about enforcement. Everybody talks about enforcement because until policy making is good, but after that, how do you enforce a policy? How do you make sure that things are going right? So that's the problem, and why we should solve the problem. Because if 3 years ago I would have been talking about it, probably I would also not feel very hopeful. But today, that given the technological possibilities, the computational possibility, network, reach of network, things are doable and possible provided we come together and do it. So there's a technological possibilities, and again I will read number here. So there are hard research problems to be solved, and when I studied what things can be done for Sunvai in the context of Sunvai, I filed 9 provisional patents, and obviously we can create a lot of impact when we talk about numbers. Again, I will read out some numbers. So in the point number 2, high impact, when I say improve productivity for citizen, lawyer and judges. Leave about hearing in the court of law. Even if we talk about, there's a simple thing about adjournment. So when nothing is happening, 2 parties go and they give an application and say, we are not prepared or there is a reason, we want the next date. Even for that, a lawyer goes, waits there, comes back, almost three hours, both sides. Typically they go in pairs, so 4 people. At the end of it, if you calculate, you can always translate it to some number, some GDP, or ma'am, maybe you can do the research in this, right? So some of these things are there. Recently there was a news that in one of the court, they put a fine for 50,000 to one of the party because the other party came from Chennai and they were not informed. And then they said, just because you are taking adjournment, so you need to pay the cost for my coming. So this is what is happening, and obviously a lot more numbers which I will not go into details. And then obviously, so these are the problems, and now we want to solve the problem, but how do we make money? Obviously, anything has to be sustainable. So again, if we look into number, if we talk about number, that legal tech, this is a new word in India. Obviously, across the world, things are happening. This is a $400 billion market. That's the market. And when we talk about market, obviously, a lot of people, what they are doing, they are building solutions to improve efficiency for lawyers. When I say lawyers, these are corporate lawyers or law firms. Nobody is still focusing much on social good, solutions for citizen-centric, and obviously working with the system. That's a hard challenge. And until we solve that problem, it's very difficult to, even though we build these efficient components, results are still far away. So this is how it is, and obviously there's a market size, 3.1 million NGOs, 10 million consumers only in Bangalore, 110 million in urban cities. So some of these are the numbers. So there's a lot of market, lot of opportunity. And obviously when we solve these problems, the state of the society will be improved from all perspectives, from traffic to stress to improved judiciary, enforcement of law on various, from various angles. So this is where I am, and these are some of the R&D problems since we are here in Education Institute we think. So obviously I will just throw some of the thoughts. So if we talk about text, so there's a lot of text data, so many judgments, right? All this is in text. So typically what lawyers do, they read through it manually. So how do you do it automatically? When you talk about semantic, when you talk about machine learning, when you talk about some of these things, can I make things efficient? Can I make things robust? Can I do it fast and in a systematic method? That's a research problem. Can I find a algorithm to find out who is the right lawyer to solve this particular, to handle this particular case? That's a research problem, right? Can I do the assisted drafting for legal documents? Obviously, we need lawyers or people who understand law to apply their mind to understand how to handle this particular problem or case in a better manner. But lot of manual work. Can I build a system for that? And the simplest of all is building the digital workflow. Can we build a big connected system, as you also highlighted? So all these small components which are working in isolation, can we link them together and see things together and get a better perspective of the problem? So those are the R&D problems, and obviously these solutions are needed and they are possible today. They are possible because there is a technology, and if we come together, obviously we can solve them. So this is a big picture. I'm currently focusing only on the legal system, that too consumer issues that I'm currently trying to look into, but obviously that's not where I want to limit myself to. Going forward, Sunwai can be an interface and will be an interface between citizens to all the stakeholders in the problem resolution space. So there are NGOs, there are government, there's legal system, judiciary system, and then individual businesses. So all of them, how do we look at them together and come up with a solution? And with that, I will talk more into a specific problem or use cases that I'm looking into, and also the technology in my workshop tomorrow. Thank you very much. So there's a system. So as I said, there are people building a small system. So there's a system called Loreto. So there you can, if you search, if I go and, for example, we can type it here and we can see. So if you search, okay, lawyer in Bangalore, it will show you the list of lawyers in Bangalore. And obviously the list it will show only for lawyers who have registered. It will not show you Ram Jethmalani or Kapil Sibal or any of them, because they have a well-defined already business in place, right? So it will show you some of the, then you say, okay, South Bangalore, then you say, so it will show you their phone number, or maybe you can fix an appointment. But you really don't know how good they are. See, if I am resident here, my generation, past generation, my father, grandfather have been living here, I know. But as a new person, how do I know this person is capable enough, is honest enough, is smart enough to understand my particular? So it's not just finding the phone number of name of the person that LinkedIn or any of these systems today provide, but going beyond that. And also they don't list their expertise. Typically they claim to be expert in everything. So that's the challenge. Yes, yes. Right. Yes. So typically, so again I will give you an example for what lawyers are talking. So recently there was a conference in Bangalore called iTech Law, and there people discussed technology and law related challenges. And one of the lawyer from Delhi High Court, he came, and he was IP lawyer, and he was very worried because judges who are handling the case, who are doing the hearing of the case, they are not IP experts. So he was worried that he may lose the case just because judge is not able to make sense of what he is claiming or what is the kind of. So typically, like we were discussing during lunchtime with Sir, then he says, where's the GO, government order? If you don't have a GO, probably, so obviously, I mean, law is written in 1934. That time, this particular scenario itself was not there. You talk about Ola and Uber, they are not even authorized to run their businesses, right? So when you talk about some of these things, how with changing times, you make sense of those laws, link them together, present it to judge, and then, so obviously a lot of technological possibilities. Text? Yes, so there are a lot of judgments, and starting from ever since they have started to be written and whatever is being followed, because for different kind of jurisdictions, what they do is they follow different conventions. There are different treaties that they follow. So for example, in case of copyright, there will be different conventions that they will follow and some other. So how do you link them together, see? And then this is again discussed by lawyers. So there is a judgment, and typically they refer to precedents. They refer to prior judgments. And then there is an amendment. Now, as a lawyer, if you know this is an amendment, then this is a recent that you have to refer to. But if you don't know this, you are referring to that, which is old, which is not valid, because somebody else has already worked on it and made a refinement. And currently, there is no system to link all of them. So when I say I need to see information together, I need to put them in perspective with respect to date, with respect to people, with respect to changing business context and policies, and then say, okay, this is what needs to be done.
The reason I ask is because, I mean, why do we prize certain lawyers over others, right? It's also a question of interpretation. So I'm just trying to understand how AI will fit in with the best of.
AI, I will give you my personal example. For example, when I went to court and they'll say, okay, this book has a particular, say, 5th imprint. What is the proof that it was printed in this particular year only, right? So then again, you can see it on Amazon. You can see it, but judge has no access. Now that is where a lot of people put a lot of noise, and big lawyers, especially, they have more resources to bring a lot of noise. Then how do you validate the documents that are presented in the court of law in front of judge, where there is no Google search, there is no access of internet? How do you put them together, right? So, and just because because of presence of this noise, the actual judgment takes time, because judge will not be able to relate to things and see the current. So obviously these are the challenges that is there, and those needs to be addressed. Yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for inviting Zero Labs to this. Now, I mean, compared to the work Peter was doing, I thought running a startup was difficult, raising capital is difficult. So without Series A, Series B, no exit, I think what he goes through every day is remarkable, right? So he's not here, but kudos to him. Now the topic here we're going to talk about, take back control, is a very provocative one. Thank you for choosing it. Now, when I add privacy to that, and talking in an educational institute where there's a lot of policy making, it's almost like a political statement today, right? But we're a tech company. I mean, politics is completely different from what we're trying to do. So I hope you don't associate some of these things that in some way, shape, or form also relates to, projects like Aadhaar and all, that we're not trying to make any statement, right? It's a purely technical problem we're talking about. So I want to talk a little bit about the motivation, about what Zero Labs is all about, what we are solving. I'll talk a little bit about how we are going about it. It's a deeply technical topic, so I'll try to break it down. We can do offline on some of the technology aspects, right? So first is this reckless invasion of privacy, right? I think this affects all of us. My daughter started her email, like she's an 8-year-old, so she just started emailing. Once we were exchanging notes about her vacation, and even she started getting ads about wherever we are headed, right? So that's not fair. There are companies in the US, including in India as well, where they know close to 2,500 attributes about US citizens, right? These are actually all ad-driven business, and that's the fancy name, but they're all data brokers, and their whole business is the invasion of privacy. It's about a $120 billion industry. And the second problem is the question of the untrusted cloud, right? So by definition, whether you keep it on Amazon or Azure or any other cloud, by definition, these are third-party untrusted clouds. One way to obviously enforce your rights is to sign documents that actually no one of us reads, and we just go say, I agree. But technically, you are not capable to enforce anything, right? I mean, they have all the rights to snoop in. Whether they do it or not is a subjective decision, but you really are in control. You're not in control, right? So it's also a motivation of ours as to how can we technically put you in control that you really know you're in control, right? And this other problem is really about data breaches. And I would almost go to the point of saying that if you have spent time in the US, then maybe some of your data is actually compromised in the Equifax breach and Yahoo breaches and others. We just don't know it, right? It affects us in various ways. It's very difficult to know if your personal data is breached or not. The chances of it being breached is actually very high. What we hear about is like very big cases or celebrity cases and things like that, but it's a very, very common phenomenon. And this was a statistic that made sense to me, so I just thought I would show it to you, that your odds of actually having a data breach are pretty high, right? So it's not something that happens to someone you never meet, don't know, but it actually can happen to you as well. Now, both of these problems are solved with what we like to call somewhat of a grossly inadequate methods, right? Encryption is a method to solve them. And encryption as a technology is fairly dated. It's no less than 3 decades old, right? But it was invented in a time and place when our world was much simpler, right? You didn't have this data explosion that you have today. So using a tool that was invented for protection, and it's a good tool, by the way, and applying it today when the whole context is different, it's not working out, right? A good way to use, not use technical jargon is, let's say you have to go to the market and the path that you have to walk has a lot of stray dogs. It's actually also a pretty common problem in India, right? In the night at least. And you have this big SUV, right? But you don't want to take it out because it's so cumbersome to take it out from the parking and you know, take it out. So what do you say? Say, I'll not go. But that doesn't solve your problem, right? Because you actually have to go, and you have an SUV, but you don't want to take that SUV out. So usability is very, very important for any technology, no matter how good that technology is, right? So when old technology, old encryption in use in today's context, people switch it off, right? If they have to jump through 3-4 hoops to actually secure data, they're more than happy to switch it off, right? And that compromises their data in the future. So there was a report by an institute called the Ponemon Institute, very reputed institute in terms of breaches and things like that. The report said that 4% of data breaches globally had encryption, right? Now, why would only 4% have encryption if encryption is available to everybody in this room, right? Okay, you need a little bit of technology, but somebody else can do that. Only 4% was used because old encryption is extremely cumbersome to use, right? So our theory is, can it be modernized so easily that none of us are going to feel intimidated by it? Encryption kind of generates this impression that only, you know, hackers and others have access to it. But each one of you actually use encryption every day. If you are going to any site that has HTTPS, behind the scenes you're using encryption, right? So can we make it as simple as HTTPS? So we think there's a right way. The right way is the always encrypted paradigm. I will not go too much into details, more than happy to engage offline. But like water has 3 states, solid, liquid, and gas, data too has 3 states, that is at rest, in transit over a network, and in use, right? The first 2 are kind of solved. the last problem is not solved, and we are also working on it. There are other companies also working on it. Big research is working on it. There are some startups working on it. So we are working on it too. Actually, our core IP was born at the IISc. We are incubated here, but the core research work was actually a product of IISc. Right? Cloud TNCs feel like this. I mean, for most of you guys, I'm sure none of you read it, because I don't read it either, right? We just agree. So each time you actually upload a document to Google Drive, and I'm sure all of you do it all the time, and when you say I agree, that document is actually mined, right? It's not just your email, even your document is mined. So you might want to do an experiment, write about a holiday to Sri Lanka in a Word document, put it in Google Drive, and you'll start getting ads of Sri Lanka because the document is mined, right? But we don't read it, so we do this. But for an enterprise, imagine the impact of this. Let's say IISc, IIITB was a deep tech research organization, and let's say it was doing research on, I don't know, nuclear fission or something like that. And if those documents were on Google Drive, at least from an analysis perspective, the service provider can know that this institution is working on a nuclear fission, right? I mean, just a pictorial representation of what we do. Data brokers, this is a big industry because all the things that we keep uploading to the cloud, more often than not, are analyzed, and they form a behavioral pattern of what you are doing or not doing, which is basically more common for free products. If you look at Google Drive's terms and conditions, it actually says in plain English that we're going to scam the heck out of you, right? And when you do a Google Suite, which is the next version, that paragraph is not there, but it's still the same technology. So encryption is the only right way, just kind of a little bit of one-on-one encryption. Nobody can understand this, neither can he, which is an adversary, neither can the untrusted third-party cloud, right? But if you did this the old way, what is going to happen is each time you want to run an operation, you're going to have to decrypt, right? And that is a big overhead. So what you're going to say, you know what, forget encryption, we're going to put it in plain text. So what we're saying is, what if you can run your operations directly on encrypted data? That is called homomorphic encryption, right? So what you're going to send the cloud if you want to add 2 plus 2, you're actually going to tell the cloud add 5 plus 5 and give me the results, but it will be decrypted to 4. So the cloud just has the utility of giving you compute and storage, not knowing what it is storing, not knowing what it is computing, right? And this key management and all that keeps it all going, right? So we were talking about data at rest. So when your data is on a storage, that's at rest. When you ship it over a network, whether it's the LAN here or the internet, that's data in transit. When you're actually working on it, that's data in use. So it's encryption in use, right? You're working directly on encrypted data, never decrypting it, right? That's what we do. I think this also complements the whole security posture of an organization, because most security posture are perimeter driven and policy driven. Firewalls, data loss prevention, these are all perimeters, and there's a lot of evidence that the perimeter is breached all the time, right? Anthem, Sony, I mean, the name goes on, because the perimeter gets breached all the time. And policy is basically the management of the perimeter, right? But what we are trying to achieve is data-centric, which is complement to perimeter. We're not suggesting that perimeter disappear, but ours operates directly on the data, because that's the goal that you're trying to protect, right? We're not worried about how high your fence will be, because someone will find a way to jump over that fence, which is the perimeter. So can standard encryption do this? So, well, I'm a no one, so you don't have to trust me, but here is Dropbox's CEO, right? So this was a comment that I found, and I thought it was very useful to use it. So at least Dropbox's CEO thinks it's a trade-off, right? And we don't think it's a trade-off. Security should not be something that you trade off with anything, but he does think that. And I think this is an interesting slide just to understand some of the principles. It's not very technical. So on this scale, we have data security. The further right you go, the higher security. This scale, we have usability. Up, it's highly usable. Low is less usable, right? So data in plain text, like uploading a document or all your databases being in plain text, that's very, very usable. You can fire a query directly. It operates directly, no overheads, right? That's why 96% of the world's data is data in plain text. And as you go through this curve towards security, your usability starts to degrade. So you have a lot of things that you can do on that curve. I just put some familiar names. You can anonymize it fully or weekly, or you can have standard encryption like AES. So when you do that, you definitely get high security for sure, but your usability becomes very, very poor. And when that happens, people switch it off, right? And when it's switched off, it's no good because it's switched off. So what we're trying to achieve is basically be on that right quadrant of high security and high usability. And that's when I think that the tools will get adopted. Because, I mean, there's a contrast between how a growing nation does products versus how, let's say, Silicon Valley does products. We build for our users, right? Which I don't know if it's the right way, but you can also build, we build for our users, but you can build with your users, right? Because for is like when you're building a whole product and telling, hey, this is what I have, do you like it? And 99% of the time it's like, no, we don't like it. But if you build with them, you can take a lot of feedback and actually solve it for just this one client. And then from there on, you can solve it for others, right? So what we are trying to achieve is, can you get all of this? And it's as easy as like not doing anything. It's all behind the scenes. Standard encryption doesn't do that. That's where we want to be, in terms of quadrant. The secret sauce is homomorphic encryption, which, like I said, is encryption of data in use, right? So you're operating directly on encrypted data. So you can use any cloud with confidence, even G Drive. The reason I put that name because that's the most privacy invasive cloud that's out there, right? So you can put our technology on top of that and you can dump encrypted stuff on Google. So Google will probably be very upset that they're getting an API that's dumping encrypted stuff. So hopefully this API will dump like 1 million documents there and you'll get some notice, right? In terms of product, just to kind of help you visualize, right, what we're building, the end product is something that's very, very familiar. We all use Google Drive, we all use Dropbox, we all use OneDrive, which is bundled with 365. So our product is EFSS, which is Enterprise File Share and Sync, right? You share a document, you collaborate on a document. So there's nothing new to learn. So it's just the layer we have that protects you. So our product is, I mean, if somebody uses Google Drive, it's as simple as using Google Drive. So we take any of these products, we actually have 9 integrations, I think, at this point, on top of which we put our IP, which is just the client layer, and what you get is a privacy-preserving client, which we call OSTORE. That's the name of our product. Yeah, I won't go on to all this. This probably is more about our market segment and all that. But that, in a sense, is our motivation and what we're trying to solve and things like that. And we're going to work with IIIT to hopefully give this solution to students here for free for life. And if there is any way, Peter, this makes sense for the work that you do, this is going to be free for life for you as well, right? Because I think there is some privacy around the cases and things like that that you handle. So OSTORE is just a name. And the reason, actually we started with Zero Store, and then Zero was too long, so we just made it O, hoping people will think O and Zero are more the same thing. Because systems like the one that we're building, the systems like this are known as zero knowledge systems, right? Where the server side just provides you the utility of storage and the utility of compute. It doesn't know anything other than that. So they're known as zero knowledge systems. So it made sense to kind of have zero in there, and including in our name. Sure. Correct. Correct. What happens if the user device is breached, right? So see, homomorphic encryption is an umbrella term for a lot of techniques that let you operate on encrypted data. So we have one of our technique, IBM has patents on some of their technique, Microsoft, it's an umbrella term. Now whether you put that technique on the client side, on the server side, is an engineering implementation decision. In our case, we decided client side, right? Now let's say you are running the OSTORE application on your phone and you have our application and your device is lost, right? So whoever gets the device will not be able to use it. At least though that application they'll not be able to use it. Your other applications, whatever security protocols they have, that will apply, right? But the OSTORE application they'll not be able to use unless this thief also has your encryption keys. All right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon all. I'm Sridhar. I'm co-founder of City Surveillance. We work in areas of video surveillance integrated with video analytics. So we develop solutions for video surveillance. Actually, with video analytics, which are designed for crime prevention. So we use a preventive model for whatever the law enforcement agencies are using for investigative purpose. So we take the video feed from every camera and we analyze it and we run some on-chip analytics and we help with the help of managed alert system to prevent a crime. Okay, so that's what about it. But I don't want to talk about my company. I wanted to talk about why surveillance is not an option these days. So if you go back to the history, why would we need a surveillance? Basically, initially what was happening is like the governments were fighting. There were world wars which were fought and so on. And the things like it was only dealing with the governments. But nowadays, if you see, right, every individual is fighting. There are a lot of human trafficking, like drug cartels and a lot of things. And the infighting between individuals, which are leading to, we need something which needs to understand like what happened afterwards, like basically to investigate an event or a crime or something, right? We need to have some data. Right now, it is only based on some certain assumptions that law enforcement agencies are doing. So they have some data saying that this group has owned up for this terrorist attack, or this group has done this, or based on, the whatever asking of other people, from the information of people who have seen, they're getting the data. But what if you have a security camera in place and you get such information? So you get a live information of what really happened and you can do the investigative purposes and so on. So basically, from the government, it has moved to the individuals, and that's where, if you see in US, right, basically every 100 meters you're covered with a camera. So everything you do, right, basically it's all captured. So how do they analyze and what analytics they play on, it's a different matter, but still you're covered under the camera. So what happens is basically, recently in Miami Beach, right, they have installed a set of cameras. One of the company has given a surveillance solution to it. So they have linked it to the National Crime Record Database. So when a criminal enters with a criminal record, with the help of facial recognition software, he is detected saying that a criminal is entering this tourism spot. And it is alerted to the headquarters and the nearest police stations, and all the map, wherever it goes into that, in that tourism place, it's all mapped with a geofence. So the nearest police can act on that particular place and he can catch the criminal, basically. So that is the level which technology is helping surveillance, and that's where we would need surveillance to help us to be safe. So basically, we do understand, the scale and the complexity at this, at the threats which are happening, right? It's huge. We are not, not only law enforcement agencies can help and prevent all that. We as an individual, we should support in that particular thing. We should use surveillance and we should help them, catch cases, do an investigation and try to help prevent such things. So normally this surveillance is normally used as a deterrent in most of the cases. But, say there is a camera, okay, I should not do anything. That's what, because the camera is capturing us. So that was the earlier situation, but now people have become very smart. Even there is a camera, we can tamper the camera or we can get rid of the sight of camera and still do so many things. So now we should use technology, which is helping us. Right now only law enforcement agencies are using the technology of video analytics to help, to do a criminal investigation actually. Now we can use that technology and we can use this managed alert systems and advanced algorithms, and we can bring in technology to make it a preventive method actually. So how technology will help in the area of surveillance is availability of cameras and alarms and high-speed processors which will help in video analytics. So with the video analytics, if you see, right, the image processing, video analytics and cloud database and on-chip analytics will help surveillance to be make it a better use. Like it helps the CCTV security systems to be used in effective usage. So, but there is also a fallback. I mean, there's a right to privacy. Basically, we had installed a CCTV security solution in IIITB in the hostel block. So basically, there was a problem like these students are jumping and there was suicide which happened, but there were no cameras. And when police or the parents of that student have come, these guys have had no data at all. So one thing is like they didn't have an option but to go for the CCTV security system. Other thing is like they also should prevent such things can happen. So what could they have done? Like they came to us like basically. So we gave them a solution, not only providing the CCTV security solution which records that particular data and gives them some information, but also if somebody is scaling the wall, there's a perimeter intrusion detection which happens, and that's why an alert is raised. So the security officer or the chief administrative officer can look at it, he gets an alert, he can see what is happening, and he can alert the nearest person to go and prevent such things from happening. So basically, but when we install such system also, they said like privacy of students should not be, I mean, because that's a hostel block, like the privacy of the students will be a concern. So they didn't wanted to put it into the corridors and in the rooms and so on. So basically, so that is one fallback. I mean, basically we should draw a thin line, basically saying that right to privacy is always taken care when surveillance is being used. So this is our company's tagline. We ensure city sleep. We build safe city solutions and safe state solutions. Thank you. Yes.
I'm increasingly sort of disturbed by this idea that we live in a very dangerous world. I feel like that is equally propagated by technological vision. For example, what you said about proactively prevent. I mean, I don't think anyone will deny that we should prevent crime, but like you said, there are certain lines to how proactive we should be, right? I mean, one very big worry here is say racial or class-based profiling. Like I see in one of the residential apartments, somehow it is always the domestic workers and so on whose details have to be entered. If you enter in a car, apparently you cannot be a criminal. So I don't exactly understand this. So what you were saying about balancing privacy and surveillance, that's a very, very tricky issue, right?
Yes, yes.
I'm wondering how you thought through it in specific instances.
See, privacy is something which we still need to think of. I mean, we have never ventured about like, so, but in public places where surveillance is required, I mean, even government is forcing a lot to have CCTV security system, but they don't want to attack the privacy of the individuals when they are within the apartments or within the, student rooms and so on. So they wanted to put it in public places, even if you have an apartment complex, basically. So they wanted to have cameras which are facing the road. So it will help them to give data if something happens on the road, I mean, and it's not within the complex. So they're not mandating that inside your, residential apartment, within your apartment or something, there should be cameras, but they wanted to monitor the public places actually. So that the privacy is taken care of.
Drivers, domestic health, committing crime has come down drastically. Most crime needs to check. These days, the rest is to committing crime. Okay, it is not necessarily for monetary reasons, for reasons other than, money. You do come across news where residents staying in one block walks across to the other block of the crime. So these things do happen. You definitely can't change that. Because they are crimes committed for considerations other than money. Okay. So you can at least put that fear of God and saying that there is a camera that will capture their in the when they pass through the fountain.
I just feel like the fear of God is more than certain population.
So that is what I'm saying. We are not targeting a specific population or people from a specific strata of society. We are putting fear of God for everyone. If you see, London implemented a solution called Ring of Steel. Okay, that was immediately after the Glasgow program. Ring of Steel is designed such a way that a person is spotted every 8 seconds on the street. It is not to do with the state of society, or it is not to do with racial profiling or discrimination. They basically wanted to ensure the safety for people who come in and get out of the system. And they felt it will be easy for them to analyze crime or scene of crime after the crime.
Thank you.
Take on surveillance at the moment. Are your clients mostly government or mostly private?
We deal with both government and private. I wanted to go in to take this question. So basically, he's my co-founder, Citizen. He deals with mostly with the governments and so on. So I thought he is the best one to take this question.
What we have designed in the form of analytics solution is a preventive mechanism aimed at, or rather targeting the home segment. Okay, large residential apartments and cases. Government space, there are lots of players. Okay, and in government, the solution is not designed towards prevention. It's designed for detection after the crime is committed. And there you need to integrate NCRB database and State Crime Record Bureau database, and connectivity is an issue between stations. It all boils down to money, which the government is not willing to spend. Way back in 2007, we had suggested a safe city solution for Bangalore. It was about 600 crores. Government was not willing to spend. So we are not addressing the government angle of it at all. Okay, we are only addressing the home segment. But the analytics that we have can be tweaked or redesigned to meet specific enterprise requirements. Like banking, it can be deployed. Okay, but it is definitely not for law enforcement.
What is the efficiency of image processing from reality?
So efficiency, we go by data what is given by MIT, in US. So they have got a efficiency of 98% of, image processing efficiency. But whatever I see from Indian companies, they have hit something around 85%. So we are marching towards that 90+% for the efficiency of image processing. The challenge is like, it's the brightness, the camera capability, and the compression capability, and the image processing capability, and all those things. So when you do some facial recognition, it reads your face features and all. So basically, how good it reads and what coordinates it takes, right? It depends on that particularly. So the efficiency, what the MIT researchers have done, and the algorithms which they use like the advanced age algorithms which are not being used by open source actually. So they were able to hit 98%. Right now, whatever companies like Bosch or Honeywell are using like the age-old algorithms, they can hit around something like 85% or something. Yeah. We'll take it off. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Or without this? Is it better? No. So I'm sorry, I do not have a presentation. I will just talk about something that is beyond our product initially, then I will end with our company. So Advaita talked about patent infringement, that is a security aspect. Then Bhaskar talked about data privacy, data security issues in the cloud. Then Sridhar talked about city safety, Peter talked about people safety. So all are security problem, privacy problem, and that will always remain unsolved because security finally boils down to people and how people react, and we cannot change people, though we bring technology, policies and all.
So I am going to talk at further dimension. Much of what I want to say about data breach is already Sri Bhaskar, put a nice PPT. So I don't want to go there. So I will get into a major, massive regulatory overhaul that actually started in the EU region. Anybody heard of a GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation? Yeah. So GDPR is so there are basically two types of type. How people were dealing with security before GDPR and after. So we are going to be in after. It is actually affecting only EU, but it is going to be adopted soon by US, because typically all the US regulations, they followed the European model. So what is GDPR? So GDPR brings the notion of real definition of privacy. Otherwise people talk about security is privacy. Security is not privacy. Security basically deals with encryption, data confidentiality, integrity protection, and making those systems that power the data safe. But privacy is basically ownership and control and the right. That is ownership, right? Basically, the private bus is basically a bus that's owned by a private party. But still, it is open, right? So that is about GDPR. So GDPR really gives the control of consumer data, personal data, right to the hands of the people who own it, and make entities who use the data really accountable. So that is about GDPR. So earlier, there was a law that is, this is also a law, but I am not a lawyer, so I may not be exactly right. So this is my understanding, right? If anybody records, basically don't use it as a legal framework of implementing some technology at Reply TV, right? So if before the data protection, it was not a really dissuasive kind of power. So people break it. It was kind of a directive. Now, if anybody doesn't comply, at the worst case, they have to pay 20 million euro or 4% of the annual turnover of the company, whichever is higher. In the worst case, basically, that is the best case for the regulator. This is the best case for the regulator, that is either 2 million euro and 2%. So now, what are the principles, right? So basically, main principles is basically making the data processing fair, transparent, and lawful. Then make accurate use of the personal data. That is a fundamental principle. Then basically making the data use as minimal as possible. That is, use only the minimal data. Okay, now what is the data? Your personal data is basically your IP address, your name, your address, your even cookie, because for a shopping cart which Amazon, they visit multiple websites, cookie, or social security if it's in the US, or other forms of data. Any data that can be used to identify an individual or throwing a light on identified individual for a living human. That is how GDPR defined. So again, it is a very complicated definition, more than 60, 70 articles, even Microsoft have their own interpretation. So it is basically, everybody basically interpret in their own way. So that is personal data. Now basically accurate use of data, and then basically making the entities really accountable, and then basically other aspects of basically the principles are basically use minimal data, minimal possible amount of time, and then make it really confidential and really secure. So basically confidential is all this encryption, all that. Secure basically provides systems, provide robust systems to store all that. So these are the principles. So to implement these principles, they define two, three abstractions. That is, there is a term called data processors, data controllers, and then data protection officers, DPOs. So now lots of legal entities can make a lot of money. Lots of consulting companies can make a lot of money because everybody is afraid, because they do not know what to do with it. So now entities, every entity basically either they are a data controller or a data processor. What is data processor? Say we are providing some citizen services, some e-commerce or some form of services, and then basically say payroll or something, and then basically we outsource that to a SaaS company. So now this SaaS company become data processor, and the person who provides this service become data controller. I interface with the customers. So basically I control. I collect the data, I decide what to do with it, where to distribute, and basically what is the lifeline. So these are the controller. So data controller are finally responsible for how and where and when and why, what, all this for consumer data. So data controller basically, and then data processor. So now data controller has to understand where basically they are outsourcing to which data processor, and then basically other aspect is DPO. DPO is basically kind of auditor or who does information audit, who make it basically make company, okay, it's like a variation of company secretary or chief information officer, a glorified term. So now for this GDPR regulation, it's a DPO. So now entities basically have to appoint a DPO. Data control has to make sure that basically data processor does its job basically in compliance. If they are staying in their regulatory, they are understanding, they have the people, they have the policies, they have the actions framework, and then basically they have to, if they are not in EU, they have to hire a representative. In if they're outside, if they are in EU, they have a public company, large entity, they have to hire DPO, and then basically they have to be accountable. They have to use the data for legitimate purpose, and then basically they have to provide, security. That is all the security aspect. That is basically they have to make sure that system provide resilience. So GDPR say do security well. Do security well means go beyond confidentiality. So also basically provide resilience to the system. Say you protect the data. Data is safe. Data is confidential. But data is not. If data is not available, it is not secure, right? So they need to protect the systems. And then basically then they say basically how your system have privacy built in right from the get-go. So that is their definition of privacy by default or privacy by design. And then basically they talk about basically if there is a data breach. Data breach always happens. There is only two types of organization who went through data breach and are going to that will face the data breach. There is no other way, right? So when they face a data breach expose, notify the regulator, and if it's sensitive data breach, basically notify the subjects also. So these are the restrictions. These are the requirements that is imposed upon the entities. And now it also gives the rights to the consumers. So what are the rights? They can do whatever they want to do with the data. That is, they can say, first of all, entities have to get the consent. See, right now, basically, we get cold call from anybody, right? So they don't take the consent. Can I call? Can I mail you? Can I send a marketing mail? They don't, because we just get. So we get mail without consent. If now in GDPR, that is illegal, right? So the right to the consent in all form of processing. And then basically they can ask the entities where are my copies of all the data. So basically data will be in multiple locations, multiple silos. So now the people do not have the systems that is built with converged silo in mind, right? So now if any consumer has very similar data, basically they don't see all the data. So they do not have a unified control visibility platform, right? Then basically they can say erase my data, or basically make my data activate, that is right to rectify. Then basically they can object to certain processing. They can restrict certain processing. And they can stop, or they can order, move my data to another provider, another entity. That is right to portability. So all this form of rights, are right at the hands of the consumer. So if they are not happy, they're distressed with any form of processing, they can sue the entities. So that is the GDPR. So GDPR basically democratize or basically make security framework for the data, private data, consumer data legal. So this is EU, all the 28, 30 member states, countries basically have to comply, and all the US company providing services to EU citizens, regardless of where they are, right? So if they are in EU, they have to comply. If they are providing services, they have to comply. So this applies to every company. Companies in India who are providing services to EU citizens or residents, companies in the US. So this is a main, this is actually a massive impact. So this is going like a wildfire, right? So always remember, if you are a security student, if you are a smart student, raise your hands if you are smart. You have to be working, you have to understand what is GDPR. So GDPR is going to be a term that will be discussed about every hour by every IT department in the US and EU. So it is that hot. On May 25th, it is going to take hold. So everybody is running after that. So now this is all about GDPR. Nothing specific about our technology, but this law is going to work very good for us for the product we have built. GDPR talk about the total visibility and control, and our platform Nerveo Cloud is all about a universal file system. So GDPR requires a universal view, regardless of the location, regardless of whether in the cloud or in the branch, in a remote office or cloud service, we can show this is single drive, we give all the aspects. So whether your data, because we decouple actual access from actual location. So that is basically, we make the data virtual, but that is we decouple storage from the physical location, right? So that is one aspect that basically makes us a very compelling proposition to play in the GDPR market. Then another requirement that is imposed upon the all the entities are basically they have to audit everything. They have to all the activities basically they have to audit. So we have a very unique auditing framework that basically we integrated with the blockchain. So we make it secure. So that is another aspect. Then basically we go beyond. See, our confidentiality, we actually use keyless encryption. We don't use any key because we use a random key. Then basically we encrypt. We store the key in the file, then we do information dispersal. We do erasure coding. Using Reed-Solomon algorithm, we slice and dice the data, and I got US patent granted in 2015 for that. We store into multiple locations. So with that, it is basically information theoretical security. It is not computational. Nobody can break it because it is information theoretical. So that is about our confidentiality. Now basically we make sure that even the systems that host this data is always available by providing the cybersecurity threat monitoring with another SaaS service. So this is where basically we say we help DPAs or controllers basically implement security very well. Then the other thing, basically they talk about this take care of data processes very well by the controllers has to take care of the data processes. So basically in our architecture there is a two fundamental abstraction of our product, which is basically there is a product called, there is a component called HQ Gateway. HQ Gateway basically talk to wherever the SaaS service is deployed. So that communication, basically we have a file system like interface. So we can actually in a file system level we can remove the data. All the instance of the data will be removed from all the locations. So that is a key tenet of GDPR, right? So these are the 3-4 systems, and then we built with security in mind. Because people say now NetApp is approaching, we are GDPR compliant. NetApp Waffle built without GDPR in mind. NetApp Waffle doesn't log all the activity. Basically, if any activity, basically they cannot prove immediately that basically this file activity is there. We built a file system. That file system by default it audit everything. So so all these 4 things, but the data is always thrown not in file system. It may be CRM system, it may be in loosely coupled SaaS applications. So we don't solve all the problem, but the moment data comes to file system layer, basically we solve it. So that is the that is where GDPR and Nerveo Cloud go together. And GDPR also make basically define, or make the definition of security very accurate. Because when I used to talk about, okay, to make secure, we have to do more than confidentiality. Some investors, some partners, so you are doing too many things, you are not narrow kind of thing. But, security basically you have to complete. You cannot solve one problem, right? Because then that is why security always remains unsolved. Security is always it's a feeling, right? There is always more to do. People are not enough, people want to do more, people want to solve more problem. That is why always they want to buy more stuff, right? Because other thing is basically all the computer science engineers are not trained in security. Because security they think that it's an afterthought. They don't build by at a fundamental level. They take people who specialize in security, they will do security. They cannot be a security guru. You have to have a multidisciplinary background, otherwise you cannot be a security expert, right? So security is like mathematics. Security has to be ingrained into every aspect of what you do. Whether you are a web app, or you are building firewall, or building operating system, or application, or even a physical person. Even I can break into IIITP security with a car. I can just drive. No security guy will stop me. I come here with a gun and I can shoot. We are not safe. but we feel that we are secure because we are AAA, we trust one another, right? So it's all contextual also, right? So for that AI or that machine learning, basically we'll apply and anomaly detection. So multiple pieces come together, right? So in that, basically our technology is basically like, we combine systems and storage security, system security, and this control visibility. So now basically in Nerveo Cloud, basically we, every marketing message we will throw GDPR also, because GDPR has given us a good weapon in marketing our solution. So, so that's all about our story. And we filed basically 4 more patents, another 8 patents to go. Because we don't want to file too many, because within 1 year it will publish, so we will wait some more time, because we want to see how GDPR takes hold and unfold, so that So we wish actually that GDPR like variant should come to India, at least to protect people's health. GDPR actually protecting the personal data. EU basically wants to see that Google, Facebook are making a lot of money out of people's data, behavioral or monitoring their behavior kind of. So okay, let us also make some money. Maybe regulators also will make money, right? So at least basically in the context, basically we want to see the regulators. We have IT Act, but nobody knows. Nobody cares of. Nobody respects our fundamental right? Everybody basically take us for granted, right? So even Aadhaar, all that, basically other people should seriously talk about. Every other discussion should have GDPR in, the GDPR as a topic. So because I think everybody is tired. So actually GDPR is a very vast topic. That's why I didn't take the presentation, because then people will be very overwhelmed with all the jargon. Any students, any questions? So you note down the GDPR, right? So go and study more on that. Anybody has any questions?
I want to add one comment to your thing. In governments, like we are designing systems, but they are not connected. In government of Andhra, they aim to be more technologically advanced government. If you just randomly go to the website, start clicking on some of the links, at some point in time you start reaching to a place where people's phone number, their address, everything is there. In Bangalore, this election list. We do the Google search, we can find details. So even when they are designing systems, somehow these components get missed, and you never know. What can be a potential threat. So obviously these enforcements are very important, and this nobody is doing intentionally. But at the end of it, it's available. It is when I decide, I figure it out. I saw.
I'll just add one comment, right? This how private enterprise always finds a way around this regulation. GDPR, right? Big movement. I think a lot of lawyers will make money. A lot of McKinsey consultants will make money. On their resume looks good. But the guys who make all this laws actually don't know how fluid data is and how it travels and how it does things. So to circumvent law of the land for gambling, they go offshore, right, and have this gambling on water, which is you're still following the law, you're not law of the land. So there's a company in the US which has launched low Earth orbit satellites on where they will put storage. And their plan is to escape law of the Earth, which has all these residency laws, data residency laws and all that. And I have a feeling they'll get away with it, right? Because legally they are allowed to do that. We ping satellites all the time for data. All you have to do is put a storage there, right? You ping AWS, doesn't matter whether it's Singapore or it's a low Earth orbit. So it's amazing how private enterprise will find their way around all of this.
So any other questions? Thank you.
No, my friend.
இங்கே நம்ம ப்ரொஜெக்டர் வச்சுருக்காங்க நேற்று அந்த ப்ரொஜெக்டருக்கு இப்போ வச்சு
I invite you all for a panel discussion on health and why this work matters. The moderator for this session is Dr. Srikanth, who is also a professor at IIIT. Dr. Srikanth obtained his PhD in computer science from Cornell University in 1986 and has a BTech in mechanical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. He also has over 28 years of experience in the software industry, mobile applications and wireless technologies. Graphics and visualization, 3D printing and geometric modeling, and e-health are his areas of research, teaching, and consulting. He is also a co-convener of the e-health research center at IIIT. I invite Dr. Vaishnavi to give the keynote today. Dr. Vaishnavi is a practicing Ayurvedic doctor from Belgavi with almost 30 years of experience. She also has experience in research and academics and has been a faculty member of multiple medical colleges.
Namaskara. Thank you. I thank IIIT for inviting me here. Well, should I take this? This should be fine for me. Yeah. This is fine, I think. Well, today I'm here before you to talk about evidence-based Ayurveda medicine or traditional medicine for that matter, whether technology or actually it is required or how this technology can be used in Ayurveda to validate its own principles or systems, Ayurveda system as such. Like that is what is evidence-based or evidence-based validation of Ayurveda. Being an Ayurvedic practitioner and Ayurvedic teacher, I find that the basic difference in Ayurveda and then the modern science is that the parameters. The basic parameters that we use in Ayurveda are most of the times subjective ones. Although there are objective parameters are also there, but then most of the times these are all subjective ones. So it becomes extremely difficult for us, to interpret our science, Ayurveda as a science in terms of the modern science. But then of late, we've been doing this, trying to create some evidence, taking the help of technology or innovation for that matter. And then being into research also, I had the opportunity to take up research work in Regional Medical Research Center, ICMR Belgavi, wherein I worked on my own project called as Vatsanabha. Vatsanabha is Aconitum chasmanthum. It's a drug. And then it is a poison. Even in allopathy, they use this Aconitum chasmanthum, but then it is used as a poison. Even in homeopathy, they use this. Wherever it is used, it is known as poison. Even in Ayurveda, the name for it is Visha. But still, we use it in treatment. But before using that, we subject this Vatsanabha to certain procedures called as Shodhana and Marana procedures. As you know, Shodhana means purification. And then Marana in Ayurveda, we say that when we subject this to this Marana procedure, the Vishatatva or whatever is the poisonous thing into it is nullified. That is how it is explained in Ayurvedic texts. And then we do use this in our practice. Particularly so when it comes to arthritis. Whatever arthritic conditions, we use Vatsanabha therein for reducing the pain. So this made me take up this particular project on Shodhana and Marana procedure. So we started analyzing what exactly it is. According to modern science, Aconitum chasmanthum is poison. Even in Ayurveda, it is poison. It is not toxic. It is poisonous. The moment you feed this to a person or even the animal, there is a sure death. Instant death occurs the moment any person or any individual comes in contact with Aconitum chasmanthum. And then this is used as a drug, as a medicine. So how it is possible? We started taking up a Shodhana thing. In allopathy, it is stated that Aconitum chasmanthum has got aconitin as a marker content, wherein that is the one essential thing which is responsible for sudden death or instant death, it is said. And then when we took up this Shodhana procedure. After that, we took up this HPTLC and HPLC. That is TLC, and a higher version of TLC is HPTLC. Because, wherein we could state that it quantifies HPLC quantifies the amount of aconitin or aconine present in any of the drug. So we quantified the drug. When we took raw drug, the aconitum content or quantity of the aconitum was 32% into aconitum chasmandum. And then when we actually took up this Shodhana procedure and then we again analyzed it through HPTLC, it had reduced to 2%. And then we tried different media also. In Ayurveda, there are different media used for it. One is Gomutra, simple Gomutra. The other one is Godugdha. And then the third one is Ajadugdha. Even in Chinese medicine, they use Aconitum chasmanthem and other varieties also, wherein they take up simple water, but then they boil that Aconitum chasmanthem into water. And then they use plain water as the media. And that's the reason why we took plain water also as a media. No doubt the raw thing had 30% of aconitin into it, but then all other media, Shodhita, Vatsanava, aconitum, had reduced level of aconitin. And Gomutra had the lowest percentage of aconitin into it. According to modern science, it is stated that when aconitin undergoes hydrolysis, it gets detached from benzoic rings. And then that is the reason why it gets converted, aconitin gets converted into benzoyl aconine and then aconine. Benzoyl aconine is less toxic and aconine, pure aconine, is non-toxic. And it is best heart tonic. It is explained in modern text. And it is also stated that this aconine is very unstable. It is very unstable. So the moment this hydrolysis, you hydrolyze this aconitin, it gets converted into aconine, but then again it gets converted back into benzoyl aconitin as such, which is toxic. If not poisonous, it is toxic. Then we thought of doing this Marana procedure, wherein we found out that because of Marana procedure, wherein we use simple maricha, that is Piper longum drug, to triturate it with Shodhita Vatsanava, wherein this was stabilized. The aconine molecule was stabilized. This is how we could make use of technology, HPTLC, HPLC and other things, and come to a conclusion that yes, this is what is the change observed into a drug because of Shodhana and Marana procedures. This is how the science helped us to know what are the changes into the drug. But then there are so many questions in between this. When we tried to do this, we never thought of all these things. As a woman scientist of DST, I had to present it before the panel of scientists there. And then the moment I started explaining that, I had put it into Gomutra and then kept it in Sunrise, and we got these results. The first question arised was whether you have standardized Gomutra, whether you have standardized Godugdha. Standardizing Godugdha, Gomutra, it's just not possible. How do you standardize these things? But then before standardizing anything, you don't consider it as a science. So this was the first question that I faced. Although I had the evidence that there is a change in the drug, but then I failed miserably to prove that it was a science, it is a science, because I did not have any answer for standardizing Gomutra. And because of that, my project was not funded further, wherein we could have just isolated that molecule and then come out with, we had these things into our mind, but then we could not do that. And because of that, I went in search of literature, and then I found that one Dr. Arindam Paul from Pharmacy College of Pune had tried to establish a lab-made Gomutra, wherein he took Gomutra and he analyzed it chemically, and then he prepared all the gomutra, adding all those chemicals in the same portion, and then he thought that that would be gomutra. And then he took normal gomutra and lab-based gomutra, and then he added this Vatsanabha into it, and then allowed it for hydrolysis for 3 days. Whatever procedure is advised into Ayurveda, he carried out all these things. And he concluded in his study that the lab-based gomutra that he had prepared had no effect whatsoever on Vatsanabha, whereas the gomutra, that is natural one, had all the effect on Vatsanabha. Wherein I said, this is the evidence that chemistry is not the only answer. Gomutra does not only mean that these are the chemical things, urea, uric acid and other things. Gomutra, it's a biological product. So it has to have that biological thing into it, wherein any lab scale made urine would not have this. This is what is my presumption. So how do we go about in finding, in collecting the evidences for Ayurveda? This is what made me to think on the can I have water? See, these procedures in Ayurveda yeah, thank you. Likewise, again, we have strychnine and other things, wherein these are classified as toxic drugs. Even then, they are used in Ayurveda as medicine. But after doing these procedures, Shodhana, Marana, and so on, again, we find certain things in Ayurveda, like we have Prakriti concept in Ayurveda. Vata, Pitta, Kapha. These are subjective parameters again. We have got Panchabhautika thing in Ayurveda, which are subjective parameters again. But then how do we establish this? One institution, IGIB, had taken up a work on Ayurgenomics to establish Prakriti of a person, individual. That is Vata Prakriti, Pitta Prakriti, Kapha Prakriti. And then this project was run for about 16 years, I think. And then they have come up with a set of things that can be said that EEG of a person, of a Vata person, would show a particular line of graph. Pitta Prakriti EEG person's EEG will have a particular curvature. Kapha Prakriti person's EEG will have a particular curvature. But then even this is not enough in Ayurveda, because these are not the only parameters that we consider. Ayurveda is Trisutriya, we say. When we say it is Trisutriya, it has got Hetu. Hetu is causative factor. Linga is symptoms, signs and symptoms, and then Aushadhi. Aushadhi is medicament. Trisutriya Ayurveda, when we think of this, in all these 3 sutras, we need to have certain parameters to get the evidences, because all these are based upon this. When we say that causative factors, most of the times we attribute this causative factor as ahara and vihara, the thing that we eat and then our lifestyle. And nowadays it is gaining a lot of importance. But then how do you standardize that? We cannot. When it comes to symptoms, it is not that the only body symptoms we consider. There are subjective symptoms also. Like for example, we have this Amavata and Vatarakta, a differential diagnosis. In both the cases, the patient feels pain, but then there is one thing explained as Vrishchika Damshavat Vedana, pain. Pain is explained in this way. Vrishchika Damshavat Vedana. Vrishchika is scorpion sting biting. So how do you consider this as a parameter? Because that Vedana will be associated with burning sensation. When we ask our patients, some of the patients, they do tell us primarily that yes, they have this burning sensation. we have pain, but it is burning kind of a thing. Then how do you, like, assess this? You cannot quantify this, right? This is a subjective parameter in terms of linga. Aushadha. When we talk of aushadha, we use many drugs based on their rasas, shadrasas, their viryas and vipakas. Then how do you consider this in terms of allopathy? It's very difficult. So we Ayurvedic people, we think that this is just impossible. But then people from your sciences are making such beautiful contributions to our science that today there are, for a drug, we say that 20 gunas are there. Gunas are characteristics, and then para gunas and all. And then these are quantified in Nanded College in Maharashtra. These gunas are quantified of a drug. Those are quantified in Nanded College with the help of people from engineering students. Even in Ayurveda, we have been trying to getting coordination from technology people and then trying to do this. So this is wherein I think personally that information technology can help us. In Ayurveda, we say that it is a very personalized, tailor-made science. And nowadays, there is, even the modern science, there is a paradigm shift in stating that initially for modern science, it was illness, treatment of illness. Now they think in terms of wellness. So there is a paradigm shift. And then people talk of PPPM. Predictive, preventive, personalized medicine, it is known as. And there is an association called as PPPM in European countries, wherein they are trying to establish these things. In Sushruta, he says that there are Shat Kriya Kalas in Ayurveda, based upon which we diagnose a disease. And then those are explained in two different stages. One is Dosha Pratyanika, the other one is Vyadhi Pratyanika. When they say that it is Dosha Pratyanika, they talk only about the doshas, Sanchaya, Prakopa and Prasara. And then when it is Vyadhi Pratyanika, there is Vekta, when the actual occurrence of the disease takes place. And after that, Bheda and then other things, Sthana Samshaya. Sthana Samshaya, Vekta and Bheda. So this is Dosha Pratyanika and Vyadhi Pratyanika. Even in Ayurveda, Sushruta says that when it is Dosha Pratyanika, when only the doshas are getting accumulated, when they are getting spread to a different sites other than its own site, you can just control those things by means of altering their diet. It is stated in Ayurveda. And then we do take up these kind of things. And only when it is in a later stage, Vyadhi Pratyanika stage, the drug interference has to be done. Otherwise not. And that is what people are thinking of in terms of PPPM now. And this is wherein the technology is going to help us, I think. And that is what I thought I would want to share with you all. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to invite our first panelist, Ms. Teju. Ms. Teju is currently the CEO and co-founder of N-Smile. She's a TEDx speaker, motivational speaker, change catalyst and a technologist. She brings techniques from positive psychology onto digital platforms to make it accessible to common man for feeling happier, living a healthier life, and achieving more. Sorry. I missed that. I can use this. Yeah, no, I'll invite all of them. Is it here? Yeah. I invite our second panelist, Professor Vaishnavi K, who just gave it. And Sharada from and Miss Dr. Sharada. Dr. Sharada is a senior Ayurvedic doctor practicing for almost 23 years now, covering a wide range of disorders.
I invite our fourth panelist, Dr. Rupa Rao. Rupa Rao is a co-founder at Health eLife, bringing technology and product management experience to the organization. I would like to invite the next panelist, Ms. Supriya. Supriya is an alumnus of IIITB. She completed her MS by Research in 2017. Prior to this, she did a long stint in the software industry, including Wipro. I would also like to invite Ms. Vidya. Ms. Vidya is an alumnus of IIITB and completed her MSc in Digital Society in 2017. Both of them are currently the co-founders at Vision Empower Trust.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. Thanks to our panel that we'll have a distinguished set of people here. We're going to talk broadly about healthcare and healthcare in a very broad sense. Typically, when we talk about healthcare, we usually focus on hospitals, pharmaceuticals, drug companies, and sort of, I would say, more standard diseases and stuff. Today, we have a very different spin on it, and in a sense, all our speakers are going to talk about different aspects of health in a very broad sense, and I don't think we'll touch on the real, what we commonly come to see as healthcare. Health is clearly a critical, important issue of consequence to every one of us, of consequence to the health of the nation and the progress of the nation and so on. And today what our panelists will help us understand is look at dimensions of health differently. So we have Teju, who will be talking about well-being, wellness, positivity, and mental health to some extent. Dr. Vaishnavi has already talked about Ayurvedic medicine. Dr. Sharda will give a different perspective on Ayurvedic and traditional medicines. Rupa will talk about, I guess we'll touch on more traditional technology, where she'll talk about how technology can help in some of these less areas that have been of less focus, right? We can, most of the research going on healthcare tends to focus on the big areas where there's large monies, large populations, so on. We are a country of 1.3 billion people with a variety of problems, and we'll need a holistic and much more diverse set of solutions and innovations that can help us. And finally, Supriya and Vidya will talk about a different aspect. When we talk about health, we're really talking about well-being and being able to do our normal activities the way we would like to do. We have a lot of people with different kinds of disabilities or physical or other disabilities that prevents them from participating and contributing to the normal life and normal society. So they'll talk about certain issues of relevance to visual